Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Crossing the Line. Today we're going to be talking about the misinformation and disinformation bill that is currently going through the Australian Parliament, and also the impending ban on children under the age of 16 from accessing social media. Now, a lot of people, if you ask on the street whether kids should be using social media, especially here in Australia where it seems to be freedom isn't really that strong of a value here at the moment. But if you ask the general public, they will say no, children, should not be allowed on social media, or they should be taken down off of social media and things like that, or at least restricted in some way. But generally, that comes down to parenting and the parents' control over said time on their phone or computer or whatever apps they're using. It's up to the parent to decide how and when they use them. As most civilized countries in the world would deem freedom, one of the top priorities of a country and for its people. But Australia just seems to be running downhill towards this totalitarian dictatorship, whatever you want to call it. Communistic ideologues seem to be pushing this agenda in Australia, including a lot of our parliamentarian people and government officials, along with the Australian media, likes to be pushing this misinformation, disinformation about censorship. Now, if this misinformation bill passes, it would be a world of hurt for us everyday Aussies, including yourself, and especially people like me who makes content online. If we got something wrong or put out something that we didn't know was 100% true or whatever, if we misjudged a topic, read a story off the internet like I'm reading here now, and got the facts wrong, or they got the facts wrong and I just repeat them, that could land me or people like you in jail, or even with a fine. It's already happening in England. The UK seems to be locking up more people for Facebook posts and offending people online than they're locking up people who are raping, pillaging, and swinging machetes around. I don't get how offending someone on the media, offending someone on social media is going to hurt them. I don't get how that's going to be, a jail-worthy offence. But in the UK, we have already seen that happening for years now, and it's a very common occurrence. It's not just during COVID like it was here. It's an everyday thing in the UK, and that could be coming here to Australia. Now, if we don't talk about these things, if we don't discuss them in the open forum that is the internet, on places like X, even Meta with Facebook or Instagram, places like Rumble are very good. If we don't discuss these things, then the conversation dies, and then everyone just assumes that whatever the government's pushing is correct. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think kids should spend a lot of time on social media. I don't think they should be posting a lot of shit on TikTok or, YouTube or whatever. But that's up to the parents to decide, and they're taking away the parenting in this case. Now, a lot of people think that being bullied online or being able to say false things online or being a troll or anything like that should be banned. And I know if you ask a lot of octogenarians or the boomers, that they just think anyone who says anything nasty, even swears on Facebook, should just be removed. I mean, I'm in enough Facebook groups now where we troll boomers and things like that, if you say the wrong thing to them, they just report you, and they just think that you should be taken off the internet because they don't like your opinion, or they don't like being called out for being a liar. Now, boomers are probably the worst for spreading misinformation, disinformation on the internet. I mean, how many of these old people, and how many old people do you know that get twisted around and think that an AI generated image is real, or an AI generated song or video is real? It's not hard to trick someone who's 80 and has no idea how the internet works, or knows how AI or social media work in the first place. It's not hard at all. And there's pages out there proving this fact. There's screenshots of these old people getting swindled by AI, and that is a dangerous thing. That is going to get worse, and it's going to be a very dangerous thing. Getting further into how bad AI is going to be and how quickly it's evolving. It's going to be very dangerous, and keep an eye on any of your relatives if you don't know what they're doing, if they're buying a bunch of gift cards or something like that, yeah, nip it in the bud, because AI is going to make things and a lot more dangerous, a lot harder to spot, especially for people who don't know how AI or the internet works. Now, the Australian government's plan here to ban children from social media platforms, including X, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, until they're 16 is potentially popular, but the opposition party says it could have done the same after winning elections within months if the government hadn't moved first. The leaders of all 8 Australian states and mainland territories have unanimously backed the plan, although Tasmania, the small state, would have preferred the threshold was set to 14. Oh, good old Jackie Lambie there in Tasmania, making sure that everyone is losing their rights to access the internet and social media, even if you're 16. But a vocal assortment of experts in the field of technology and child welfare have responded to alarm, with more than 140 experts signed an open letter to Prime Minister Anthony Albanese condemning the 16-year age limit as too blunt an instrument to address risks effectively. Details of what is proposed and how it will be implemented are scant. More will be known when the legislation is introduced in Parliament next week. Leo Puglisi, a 17-year-old Melbourne student, was found online streaming services 6 News Australia at the age of 11, laments the lawmakers opposing a ban and a lack of digital perspective on social media that young people have gained up growing up in the digital age. With respect to the government and the Prime Minister, they didn't grow up in the social media age. They're not growing up in the social media age. And what a lot of people are failing to understand here is that it's not like social media is a part of people's daily lives, Leo said. Social media is a part of people's daily lives. It's part of their communities, part of their work, it's part of their entertainment, it's part of where they watch content. Young people aren't listening to the radio or reading newspapers or watching free-to-air TV, and so it can't be ignored. The reality is this ban, if implemented, is just kicking a can down the road for a young person to go on social media, Leo added. Leo has been applauded for his work online and is finalist in his home state, Victoria's nomination for the Young Australia of the Year award, which that's fantastic. A young person in Victoria worried about freedom of speech, freedom of expression. That's insane. The commies are losing the battle, hopefully. As announced in January, his nomination bids credits to his platform fostering a new generation of more informed critical thinkers. One of the proposal's supporters, cyber safety campaigner Sonia Ryan, knows from personal tragedy how dangerous social media can be for children. Her 15-year-old daughter Carly Ryan was murdered in 2007 in South Australia State by a 50-year-old pedophile who pretended to be a teenager online. In a grim milestone of the digital age, Carly was the first person in Australia to be killed by an online predator. Kids are being exposed to harmful pornography. They're being fed misinformation, their body image issues, there's sextortion, online predators, bullying. There are also many different types of harms that can try to manage kids, and they don't have skills or the life experience to be able to manage those well. Now, that is a tragic case, but I'm going to put it down to the 15-year-old daughter going online unsupervised with obviously piss poor parenting. I'm sorry to say, but if you don't have these discussions with your kid, which obviously this woman did not, you don't go and meet random people on the internet, things like that. I mean, that's your own fault at that point. We all know the dangers of the internet. I mean, I explain them to people who don't know the dangers of certain things, like nieces and nephews playing games like Roblox can be very dangerous, and you remove them from doing things like that but it's the parents' job, it's the parents, it's their duty to monitor what their children are doing on the internet. I mean, so you monitor the kids when they're in the pool, you monitor the kids when they're playing on the playground. You don't just let them go and, do whatever they want without being supervised. So why would you leave them alone with a mobile phone or a computer? It's beyond absurd. I mean, not to mention the amount of disgusting things they could find, looking up things like Pornhub, but just the degenerate things they find on X and all that is, you can't put bumpers and rubber mats everywhere for every single child in the world. I mean, some things are going to happen, some things like this horrible case here, but her going on the internet unmonitored was a failure of her mother, who is now wanting to take away other people's freedoms and rights. Just because you had something bad happen to you and your family doesn't mean you can go out there and take away other people's freedoms and rights because something terrible happened to you. It's, that person who did that to that child should be in jail forever. I mean, well, buried under the prison, or wood chippers, whatever you want to go for, are a great option. But that's not our fault that happened. That's your fault that happened, if anyone's fault, besides the horrible pedo murderer. I mean, like, if anyone's to blame, take some blame for yourself, and blame it on everyone else. The result is that we're losing our kids, not only what happened to Carly, predatory behaviour, but also seeing an alarming rise in suicide of young people, she added. Sonia Ryan is part of a group advertising the government of a national strategy to prevent and respond to child sexual abuse in Australia. She wholeheartedly supports the Australians settling the social media age limit at 16. We're not going to get this perfect, she said. I know you're not going to get this perfect because the only way to make sure no one on the internet is under the age of 16 here in Australia is for every single person in this country who uses the internet to provide some sort of facial recognition or photo ID. So you already have to use photo ID to do anything like setting up a new SIM card. You have to use photo ID and start a Google account, things like that. Pretty much, I think, everywhere you have to use that now. But being able to open a YouTube account or Twitter or Facebook or something like that, and giving those people and those companies the photo ID that we carry, and isn't that dangerous? Doesn't that just give them information that they don't need to have? I mean, there are ways that those companies have like social media for kids. They have like kids messenger and things like that. I'm sure that they could adapt something like that for children. But making every single person in Australia, including you and I, supply ID or facial recognition to make sure that we're the ones using the phone and it's not some 16-year-old who's logged on their mother or father's phone to use Pornhub or whatever. Because this isn't just banning kids from using like Facebook and, Instagram and X, say. This is banning them from using even like things like Pornhub, is TikTok, obviously, Rumble, anything like that. This is banning them from like thousands and thousands of different apps and websites. Things that you can agree with, like, Pornhub, you can, that's easy to get a lot of people on board that kids shouldn't be going onto websites like that. But again, that is up to the parents' discretion to make sure that, they're raising their kid right, not leaving it up to people on the internet and just using the government to raise your children, because that seems to be a going trend here in Australia. Is parents and people just give up their rights just to give it to the government so the government can raise their children. If you have the want and need to bring a child into this world, raise it yourself. Don't give it to the government to raise and then bitch and whinge when the government does a piss poor job. If your kid's going to school coming back and pretending they're a furry or identifying as a cat, that's not the government's fault. That's your fault for letting him do it. Really. They're indoctrinating kids in schools badly enough now. If you go and talk to a kid, there's a kindergarten in my local town, which I won't name, but they are making children do a, I don't know what you'd call it, but like a acknowledgement of country and where Indigenous rights and things in the morning. They're acknowledging that their white ancestors did something bad to other people's black ancestors. In a kindergarten, in a rural Australian country town, they are forcing that onto children at, how old do you have to be in kindergarten, for Christ's sakes? That is disgusting. And if you're handing your kids over to the state and you're not, it's not easy not to. It's not easy to raise your kids at home. Everyone has to go out and work. It's impossible not to send your kids to school these days. It's literally impossible. You will end up in prison if you don't send your kid to school, and if you don't homeschool them in their particular way that they want you to do it. It's that bad here in Australia that the government has that many fingers into what we do in our daily lives. Raising children is something that people just seem too willing to hand over to the government. And then when something goes wrong, if the children lash out and they go and steal a car because they're piss poor parents, then they want to bring in new legislation and new laws to fuck everyone in the state over. Like the stabbing that we had in, I think it was in Brisbane or something like that. Kids got in a fight, stabbed someone died. All right, terrible thing. Stabbing's always illegal. Using a knife on someone and to defend yourself or attack someone's generally illegal in most places. Killing someone, definitely illegal. All those things didn't need any more laws for those people to be charged. They didn't need to bring in any more laws. But now you can get stopped and frisked and wandered and, in Brisbane for absolutely no reason, just because that happened. So as police are allowed to search you, search you, and frisk you over for no reason other than the suspicion that you may be or may not be carrying a knife or a weapon. Now, there's plenty of reasons here in Australia to carry a knife. I mean, if you're an American, I'm sure you'd want to be carrying a knife over here for any of the snakes, spiders, crocodiles, kangaroos, drop bears, or whatever you want to, murder chickens that we have. Even the bin chicken isn't safe. It's, if anywhere you're allowed to carry a knife, it's probably here and South Africa. But now, because there's something tragic happened to someone else and the parents weren't parenting their children and obviously raised a bunch of delinquents, everyone else has to suffer the consequences. That is what this is. If you're a shit parent and you let your kid go online and get, into disgusting websites like, what did we go on when we were kids? Rotten.com, things like that, like 2 girls, 1 cup, 1 dude, 1 jar, whatever that video is called. We saw some fucked up things online when we were kids, and maybe our parents should have been around a bit more, and maybe they should have been a bit more proactive in that. But I was homeless at 14 anyway, so that was a bit different. And I don't even know when we got the internet on our phones. It wasn't at school, that's for sure. A little bit after school, maybe. I don't know, maybe in the later years at school. But it's up to the parents. And taking away the blame on the parents and blaming it on big tech and things like that is ridiculous. Now, banning kids from porn websites and that's already been done. It's, you've got to click the "Are you over 18" thing on Pornhub and places like that, which isn't much of a deterrent. They are banning Pornhub in some states in America. You can't get onto those websites. I don't know, unless they use a VPN or something. I'm sure they can get around it. But using the broad sweeping brush of totalitarianism to ban underage kids from using social media here in Australia is going a little bit too fucking far. If you ask me, or you ask most people, I don't think they quite understand, if you ask the everyday person, how far this actually goes. They will not be able to watch YouTube. They will not be able to have an account on YouTube. They will not be able to have a Facebook. They will not be able to have a Messenger account. They will not be able to have anything. A lot of kids, like this kid here that was talking, he's using that as a way to make money, make a online profile to possibly get a career in it. Obviously, I mean, if he's working for Channel 6 and things like that, he's building a career out of it. I mean, look what he's got going there. He's obviously, using it to better his life and make things, make content, whatever it is. And some kids are going to make content where they're shaking their ass and stuff like that. But again, that comes down to parenting. And if the government is the arbiter of truth with this misinformation and disinformation bill, they get that much control over who uses the internet and how they use it. I mean, because if we have to supply ID to log on to Google or log on to our phone and go online or anything like that, you open up an X account or a YouTube account, that opens us up to so many dystopian horror nightmares. It's incomprehensible that people would vote for that. Now, hopefully this is struck down in Parliament. Hopefully, but they will try it again. They will not stop if it just gets stopped once. They will just put it through again. They'll change a few things in the law, and then they don't even know how they're going to do it at this point. They don't know they're going to stop people from using the internet if they're underage. They don't know how they're going to do it yet. So they're talking about either using facial recognition technology, using identification, like having a public like a license or something uploaded to the internet or whatever, and that opens us up to losing that information and having it stolen from us. I mean, we know how dangerous in the digital age it is, putting your information online, credit card details, things like that, and then putting that on. Imagine having to put your license and register license into, or maybe even credit card information into somewhere like Pornhub so you could use that website. You imagine how dangerous that is? And why would we want to be giving that information over to any website? I mean, I know a lot of lefties don't like Elon Musk and they don't like X and they piss and moan about his freedom of speech on there. But they're not even going to be able to piss and moan about it if they have to go and upload their information to it. If you really don't like that website, but you want to go on there and piss and moan about it, are you going to upload your license and details to that website for them to keep? No. Why would you? And this is all bouncing off the back of this federal government's misinformation, disinformation bill. This is George Orwell's, nightmare. This is what the government is pushing us towards. This is their totalitarian dictatorship that they want. This is the communist China that Albo seems to love. Even Xi Jinping was saying that everyone needs to be like Albo because Albo's such a suckhole. Banning anyone from saying something that could possibly be misinformation or disinformation, depends which word you want to use, but making the governments the only one who can't get in trouble for misinformation and disinformation, I'm sorry, but that doesn't seem very fair to me. If the government was liable for the information they put out during COVID in the last couple of years with lockdowns and all that things, those people should be in prison. 90% of them should be in prison. There's a few that were out there outspoken and, people like, Pauline Hanson and things like that, they weren't pushing it on anyone. But people like Jackie Lambie, people like, Albo, ScoMo, every single senator, bloody Albanese, pushing this now is a joke, but they just kind of leave out that they can't get in trouble for any misinformation, disinformation. I don't think that's very fair, do you? Now, we'll get into the story here, but bear in mind that banning kids from social media and then having a misinformation bill and disinformation bill and making everyone who wants to use the internet in Australia supply ID kind of ties it in together where they can just kind of shut you out from your Google profile or anything like that, because I know Google aren't scared of, shutting down people's accounts and that for the sake of hate speech or disinformation or anything like that. I mean, ask Alex Jones. I think he owes the entire GDP of France because he got a few things wrong and posted some horrible shit about the wrong people. But, they will do that to everyday Australians. They will do it to you and I. They were arresting pregnant people, pregnant women, pregnant people, that's a leftist term, isn't it? They were arresting pregnant women during COVID because they posted something saying that they would like to go to a anti-lockdown rally. They were tasing and pepper spraying old women in the street for protesting lockdowns and things like that. But you're allowed to go and protest, Black Lives Matter, even though that was in a different country. But, the government, they're always there to help, aren't they? The federal government's proposed legislation on misinformation and disinformation has passed the House of Representatives but faces a rocky time in the Senate. Opponents have dubbed it the mad bill, and it has certainly made some of them mad, ironically. There is a great deal of misinformation circulating about the bill itself. Some believe it gives the Commonwealth government power to censor them and prosecute them for what they say, but it does not. Now, it fucking does. TheConversation.com, I don't know who's paying these people, but it fucking does. It directs... All right, so here we go. The bill directs digital platforms such as Google, Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok. It requires them to be transparent by publishing their policies, risk assessments, and complaints mechanism of dealing with misinformation, which is false or misleading or deceptive content, and disinformation, which is misinformation that is intended to deceive or involves inauthentic behavior by bots. It also requires the platform to keep records and provide information to the Australian Communication Media Authority about how they deal with misinformation. Now, Elon Musk came under fire a couple of months ago from this exact organisation, saying that they were going to fine him millions and millions of dollars if they didn't deplatform people that the Australian government disagrees with. We saw this with the Twitter files when Elon bought Twitter and released all those files, that the Americans and the FBI were going to Twitter through a back door, just saying, hey, this person here posted something we didn't like, we want it removed, we want them banned, we want them shut down. Did Twitter say no? We have freedom of speech, which is enshrined in our constitution and a Bill of Rights. And Twitter's like, no, we'll do that for you. Thank you. They did it. The Australian government, I would love to see the Twitter files on what the Australian government was asking them to do, because I guarantee you it was the exact fucking same thing. These people in the government do not like you. They hate you. They hate the Australian people, and they want our money and they want our power that we have. They want to use us as pawns in their political games. They do not care what you want or what upsets you. They do not care if they take care of us. Hence why they're sending billions of dollars overseas to Ukraine and to fight in foreign wars. They do not care what you want as a people. As long as they stay in power and they get their votes, they do not care. They will do the bare minimum to make sure that their party stays in power. And us having a two-party system here in Australia like they have there in the States, and we don't have anyone like Donald Trump that upset the apple cart, they don't have to do much, because the other party, if they get in, nothing changes. Same old, same old. Dutton and Elbow, are two sides of the same coin. It doesn't really matter. Outsourcing responsibility to digital platforms. The controversial aspect of the government's bill concerns its outsourcing to digital platforms of the primary responsibility of dealing with misinformation. It requires them to enter the industry codes to address the spread of misinformation and disinformation. Once the ACMA approves the code, it becomes binding in the industry and is backed by hefty fines for any failure to comply. Now, why, as a social media platform, would you, if you're based in another country, why would you bend the will of an Australian random authority that just decides to make up rules for you? Because what if an American citizen decides to put out some misinformation on, say, X? Or we'll go with you. We'll go with Twitter. We'll go with Facebook, because they will comply with these things. X, Elon's already told them to go get fucked, at least twice now. What happens if an American citizen posts some misinformation or disinformation that the Australian government deems bad? These guys, the ACMA, go to Meta and go, hey, this person here, John Doe, thinks that this thing is right when we think it's wrong. Whether John Doe is right or wrong doesn't matter. The ACMA will put out that request to have his post or whatever it is censored, removed, giving him a ban, whatever. And then if Meta says no, the ACMA will fine them. So why would they agree to that? Because they want to keep the same narrative. Every single one of these companies, or besides X and places like Rumble and maybe GETTR, things like that, they all dance to the same tune. The ACMA will have the same ideology as Google. Because if they go and, it could just be something as simple as, hey, I'm working at the ACMA, I would like a job at Google, maybe I could work with Google in this, and do something nice for them, and they'll hire me later on down the line. It's like how government, Hillary Clinton and people like that go out and do all these speaking events and then get a magical job or magical pay rise from those companies, or they get a job on the board, things like that. It's, they're scratching each other's back. They don't care what they have to do it. And I don't know whether it's the WEF or it's someone else bigger than, some sort of cabal, or it's just aligning communist ideas that just seem to be aligning together. I don't know what it is, but they all seem to dance to the same tune, and the ACMA is going to be doing what Google wants, and Google will do what the ACMA wants, because they're one in the same. If there is a failure to develop a code, the ACMA decides the code is deficient, or if there is an exceptional or urgent circumstances, the ACMA can impose its own standards on the digital platforms. Those are backed by hefty fines for failure to comply. It is unclear what these standards can address. The bill says they can deal with matters relating to the operation of digital communications platform, which could mean anything. But the bill also says the ACMA can only apply the standard if it considers it necessary to provide adequate protection to the Australian community from serious harm caused or contributed by misinformation or disinformation. Do you know where all this come from? This come from someone tearing down a 5G tower. This is their excuse for putting this out. This is misinfo, disinfo bill. Someone apparently thought 5G was going to, I don't know, cook their brain, turn the pigeons against them, or make the earth flatter than it already is. Or, it's obviously not flat. Don't come at me. It's, some retarded person on the internet was convinced that taking down a 5G tower was a good idea. So someone took down a 5G tower or something like that. They're using that as a case to remove every single person's immunity online. One person doing something wrong. It'd be almost like if, say, let's just use an example. Say a Muslim person went on a stabbing rampage in a inner city shopping center. And then they just banned every single Muslim person from ever entering the country and kicked all the others out. It'd kind of be something like that. Or making even something less, like making them register where, everyone knows where they are or everyone knows what they say. It's the same kind of thing. That's obviously never going to happen because it doesn't fit their narrative. Doesn't work in the way that they want it to. Doesn't push the agenda that they are after. The ACMA is an Orwellian nightmare that is being afflicted on the Australian people. And if we let them get away with it, if we let them put these bills through, because this isn't the first time they've tried it. This is not the first time. It will not be the last. If they get their fingers into this and we are, labeled as misinformation spreaders online just because the government, we're not saying what the government wants us to say. So if it's about green energy, you say wind turbines are shit. We're better off using nuclear power, which is scientifically proven to be better. It's greener, it's safer, kills less people. Or wind turbines kill more people than nuclear power does. But we're not allowed it here in Australia. If we want to have that conversation, the Australian government just gets to go, nope, boop, here's a button. We are not having that conversation. And in fact, actually, we're taking you off the internet for 60 days until you remember